All right. See if we can get this message. We've got an idea that the number one commandment is love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Comes from the book of Deuteronomy 6:5. And Jesus emphasized that um, above and beyond all and any other rituals and sacrifices. There's a similar idea in Buddhism, Hinduism, in particular Krishna. Um, we also have an instinctive drive within us that drives us towards loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. So there's several requirements for this basic and primary commandment or instruction. Uh, we need to know who or what God is. We need to know what love is. If you don't know who or what God is, or you're chasing a transcendent God, then you are lost. If you don't know what love is, then you can't love God with much of anything. In particular, uh, all of your faculties. You can barely love yourself or your neighbor or your friends. Um, and then you need to know how to apply that love to loving God with all your faculties and be willing to apply it on a regular basis, if not 24-hour a day basis, continuous loving state. So we've got the first of the subjects would be who or what God is. There's a lot of people uh, errantly confusing God with a man up in the sky somewhere, or Jesus um, as a son of God, a very special son of God. Um, so I'm doing this a little unscripted, and my memory is fading, so I may have a bunch of ums and ahs and pauses to keep the keep the wheels turning. But it's a common, we're instinctively driven since birth or even conception to be in harmony with the world around us. And it's been just a common thing for all the living um, and humans during this discussion. We'll stick with that. But every squirrel, chipmunk, bird, uh, elephant, tiger, uh, amoeba, uh, every living thing seeks harmony with their world. That harmony that they're seeking may be disharmony for those that they're seeking to use as their source of harmony, like a lion chasing a gazelle or a wildebeest. Either way, the one's seeking harmony by running away from the lion, and the lion is seeking harmony by trying to take the life of the prey animal. So no matter which way you look at it, we're driven towards harmony with our world. When it's too cold, we want warmth. When it's too hot, we want cool. When we're hungry, when we want to eat. When we're tired, we want to sleep. When we want human companionship, we seek people out or pets or anything, love. Um, Everything according to science, and I have no reason to doubt it. We have atomic energy or atomic power plants, and we have atomic explosions that have indicated the validity of that there's atomic energy in all things. It may not be all usable unless it's under certain circumstances, but it's apparently there in everything. And everything is in constant motion with a different vibrational signal or signature. Um, Different materials or minerals have different vibrational frequencies. Uh, so everything we are and everything we're surrounded by in the whole universe, or I'm going to call it the omniverse, uh, in case there are other alternate universes, then this term omniverse will include everything that is, was, or will be, with nothing avoiding this term. Any new discoveries will immediately be absorbed into this term, like some kind of a philosophical black hole absorbing everything. So there's no limits, and this is apparently infinite in all directions. Now there may be an expanding universe, um, but it has to be expanding into something, and that something, whatever it's expanding into, is also included in the term omniverse, and anything beyond our comprehension or beyond our ability to observe or the observable universe is also going to be included in this term omniverse. And we're going to tie the omniverse into the idea of the monotheistic God. Uh, if God is the creator of all things, then God must have created all things, including my finger and my skin on my finger and my fingernail. I can clip my fingernail and keep it organized, but I can't grow my fingernail. I can eat better to provide a stronger nail, provide resources for the nail to be stronger or longer or a better texture or healthier. But I can't grow it. Something else may put me here. Something else is keeping me here. Something else is creating my fingernail. So therefore, and the other fingernail, and my toenails, and my beard, and my skin, and my eyesight, my brain functioning. Uh, I may think I'm smart, but not so smart sometimes. But it's not my. It wasn't. It's not my. I didn't create that. That's something else created it, and something else is creating it. And for this conversation, we can talk about it in two different versions. It's either from a scientific point of view, where there is no God, it doesn't make any difference because, or from a religious point of view, then it's God that's doing the creating. It's God that's doing keeping the functions of my being, my liver, kidney, heart pumping, beating, eyesight, uh, interpreting light signals, hearing, listening to vibrations from different uh, areas around me, sense of smell, taste, all my bodily functions and mental, emotional functions are all given to me by someone else. Uh, I'm leaning towards it being a God or God, not a God, just God, or the omniverse. So either way you're looking at it from the scientific version or from a religious point of view. So everything, all this power, and if God is, let's go, if God created all things, um, according to monotheism, God is all powerful. God is all powerful, and God must be not just because he's omnipresent. God is both he and she. It God is all the atomic energy in my fingernail, which there's a lot. Um, according to science, the last I knew, the energy equals mass times the speed of light squared indicates that we have, or one of the little, uh, little formulas to decide how much energy is in a given amount of matter is uh, just the last I knew, the last I researched, there was 10 million tons of TNT for every pound of matter, or 20 million tons of TNT in a kilo. Um, and that energy and that amount of energy is everywhere in the world, in nature, or in God, or in the omniverse. For those who don't like the term omniverse, they can use multiverse or universe, whichever uh, keeps you flowing with this conversation. Um, so we exist in atomic energy, uh, and for this conversation of loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, we're going to call all this atomic energy that we are in, this world we live in, as being God, the Spirit of God. And since the Spirit is, at least theoretically, infinite in all directions, then it's infinitely powerful. The Spirit of God, this God that is omniversal, is the most powerful God you can have, is the most present God you can have, the most knowledgeable God you can have, the most creative that you can have. It is responsible and uh, is all things. So to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength means to love everything around you, including uh, this picture and those coats and shirts hanging back there, and that light and the ceiling, and your own beard or your shoulder or your fingers. Um, so, uh, with no exceptions, and according to Jesus, there are no exceptions. That God reigns, His reign on the good and the bad and the ugly, and provides for all living things. Um, and God, Jesus guides us to even turn the other cheek. And my interpretation is that the person who might strike us on the cheek is an ignorant child of God who doesn't know any better. Um, so we're guided to love all things everywhere with no excuses, no exceptions, to remain loving no matter what's going on, up to and including crucifixion or persecution, to remain loving no matter what's going on. And I mean, I have yet to go beyond the possibility of beating the snot out of somebody who tampers with my children. I am not quite there yet, and I still reserve the right to prevent somebody the best I can from killing, raping, abusing my or basically just about anybody who's around me, in particularly, particularly sensitive around children. So, but I want to remain loving even while I'm protecting my children, um, defending my children or my friends or those in need. But the idea that of loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. And if we do that, if we love all things, then we can no longer consciously abuse any any part of God. And for me, it has become clear that that is the way to absolve yourself of all the rituals, the original rituals of uh, of the Old Testament. You know, according to the monotheistic triad of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all three of these groupings claim to be the authentic children of God, or this is they're living the life. They're they're supposed to be God's chosen, special. They're supposed to be the ancient and modern Jews of the day. The Christians are technically an advanced version of a Jew. The Muslims claim to be an advanced version of the Jew, so we're all Jews that are in the monotheistic triad. We're all claiming to be the mantle of God's chosen people because we're doing what we think we're doing, what God wants us to do. And for me, the term Islam or Muslim, one of surrender and one who submits, Islam apparently means surrender. Some people say it means something else. A Muslim is supposedly somebody who submits to God, and often they submit to more to Muhammad than they do to God. But the submission of loving, going into your love center and submitting to the will of God. Um, Jesus wants us to do that. He says that if you do that, you'll live. That's the gateway to the Garden of Eden or heaven um, on earth, and if there is such a thing in the afterlife. The Jewish, again in Deuteronomy 6:5, that was laid out as like a primary commandment to develop a intimate relationship with God. Now, I'm not for the idea that Jesus is God because Jesus is transcendent, and you can't love a transcendent God. Um, you can think you are, but if you don't see God, Jesus, if you don't know where Jesus is, then it's some kind of, it'll create some kind of mental, emotional, or spiritual illness by trying to love a transcendent being, no matter who that is. You have some uh, fascination with saints or the god Apollo or Zeus or whatever your transcendent god is. Uh, you're loving them as imaginary. You can only imagine that you're loving those gods or beings or saints or uh, sinners. So, but when you have a God that is everywhere, every part of you and every part of everything around you, everywhere you go, has always been there, always will be there, as far as I can tell, um, or even imagine. Um, So just a little thought that I thought about that I failed to bring up during one of the little sermons I'm carrying on here is that um, it's harder for me to imagine that the universe or the omniverse is not infinite than it is for me to imagine it being infinite. Of course, it's a little complicated imagining infinity, but it's hard for me to imagine there's an end and then there's nothing beyond that end. Space seems to be an infinite thing. Um, anyway, let's get a little closer to Earth here. Everywhere you go on this planet, even if you went to the moon, you'd still be surrounded by the similar, um, maybe a little different, but according to science and according to religion, that God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. God is omnipresent. I'm trying to put genders on God, like he, she, but because God is in the the female, and God is the female and the male. Um, if my finger may have XY chromosomes in it, but those XY chromosomes are loaded with God's spirit, the atomic energy. The female has similar atomic energy at at its roots, at the source. The source energy for all living and non-living things is atomic energy. There's a lot of power, and being children of God, we're all children of God, whether we know it or not. And I've come to the conclusion, or my idea, that the difference between a child of God and one who is not is the difference of awareness. When you know that you are part of this uh, great spirit, uh, which kind of is a pretty good term to just to describe God or the omniverse being a great spirit, because every part of us comes from every mineral, every nutrient, every vitamin, every material, all the carbon and oxygen and all our being is all composed, or maybe not our being, but our physical being is composed of parts and particles from the, from nature or God or the omniverse. We eat celery, we eat corn, or we eat meat, vegetable, fruit, meat. Is all we're all composed of that from birth, and we continue to recycle those elements uh, and replace them. We don't do it, but whoever's running or managing our body, I'm going to call that God. Um, you can call it the omniverse. You can call it evolution or nature or some kind of thing. But I'm going to choose to call it God or my creator, whoever made me and whoever's going to take me away someday is is responsible for all the management of uh, my body, my being, and my faculties. So we live in God. We are children of God, um, and if God creates all things, one of the questions and problems I have with the Islamic idea that God doesn't have any children, I find that to be a mistake. God has all children, not just one child, or some of the other children of God that were labeled back in the Old Testament. God creates all children. If He's the creator of all things, then He's the creator of all children. He's responsible, and we are all children of God, or the omniverse, again, for scientists and atheists, agnostics. So we live in, and we are uh, composed of, we are and are part of this omniversal atomically charged energy or spirit of God. And we are driven from childhood, from as far back as we can remember, we are driven to be in harmony with uh, that, that being or that God, or not that God or God. We're driven to be in harmony with God from birth. It's a, it's a natural process. So even without religion or without, even if God doesn't exist and it's just energy, we're still driven to be in harmony with this atomic energy that we are part of uh, and are. We are composed of the spirit of God, the energy of the universe. Um, and it's amazing. The energy is unbelievable. I mean, the idea that somebody could, some little woman can come along and pick up a car to save their child or something like that. All these little bursts of power or creativity or um, almost anything that appears to be miraculous is all possible given that we have atomic energy all around us and we have it at our fingertip. So if we took our finger and healed somebody with the tip of our finger, then that would be it, it shouldn't be that complicated to understand that the transmission of atomic energy from one person to another to speed up the healing process. Now, the healing process goes on in um, in our bodies almost in a miraculous way. If you cut the finger and you took a time lapse photography, you could sit there and watch the finger heal itself, speed up, take one picture every day. You'd have the finger healing or bleeding, uh, scabbing, um, scab healing. Maybe it might leave a scar, but our beings are healing each other, are healing uh, every part of us every day. The skin is being replaced with new skin, of course, until the human battery runs out, wears down, and then old age grabs a hold of us, and it's no longer capable of regenerating. And then we pass on wherever, I don't know where that is, but uh, so the the other part of this God, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, is learning how to love. Now, love can be found in our breathing. Our breathing is our umbilical cord with God or the omniverse or nature. We are connected through our breathing. You stop breathing, or even if you try to stop breathing, the being within us that's running our lives will prevent us from holding our breath until we die. I don't know if you can do that. You might pass out before you die. I don't know if anybody's ever been able to hold the breath without, some physical restraint on the breathing. But the being within wants us to live. Something in us is driving us to survive. Something in us is driving us to propagate. Something in us is driving us towards harmony. It has been and will continue, as far as I know. And that's something within us wants us to breathe. And in breathing, you can find the euphoria of love. That is an acceptance. That is being a Muslim, being a Jew, being a Christian, being a Hindu. Is uh, quieting the mind and stopping the judgments and the fears and anxieties and dramas and going into the love center. and being connected and being okay with the world. Breathing peacefully generates peace. And if you go into your love center in the breathing, you find the euphoria in there. You can share that with the world around you. You can share your harmony, your euphoria with the world, your lover, your children, your car, the world, anything around you. With that love inside, you can use it for the sense of well-being that it gives, and you can pass it on to anyone and all things around you, which is part of what is intended here in this conversation, is to remain loving, breathe, remain connected, stop rejecting, stop holding your breath, stop suffocating yourself with your thoughts, the thoughts of fear and drama and conning and scheming and planning and all the manipulative stuff and defensive posturing that goes on in the mind that causes the body to suffocate itself and have shallow breathing. They all disappear. There's a statement, kind of a bold statement. It's kind of a revelation. There is no mental illness in love. Love is from the breathing apparatus down into the lungs. It's not in the brain. The brain is loaded with mathematics and logic, and which I'm not denying the use of it. I don't want to deny the functions of the brain. Very valuable. But the fears and dramas and negative experiences which carry over into the future, so you're afraid of it because you got bitten by a dog when you were a child, or because you got abused by some ignorant person when you were a child or a young adult, does not mean that all people are, not all dogs are going to bite you. But in your mind, you can generate a phobia. Um, so having this love within you, finding it, it's used in athletics, it's used in meditation practices. Breathing is a way to oxygenate your whole system to avoid the buildup of lactic acid. If you hold your breath, because I always was fascinated with the quarter mile run in athletics or track and field. This is probably a little less if you went in an all-out sprint. I think even the 200 meters can be uh, you're running on anaerobic respiration. You're using up the available energy and oxygen in the muscle, and then you hit the wall. If you run an all-out sprint, you'll crash and burn in a short period of time. This can also be can also happen when your brain gets so tangled up in thoughts and ideas and prejudices and fears and dramas, is that you have shallow breathing, and then your life sucks because you're stifling yourself. And the buildup of lactic acid generates a form of muscle hell, and that may be the actual version of hell, is having suffocative breathing, where or shallow breathing, so shallow that you're generating lactic acid buildup. You're not replacing it in your body and or your brain, and you're living a life of in some version of hell. Whereas the breathing generates breathing love and feeling the euphoria of love generates a form of heaven on earth. It is the reason why alcoholics and drug addicts seek their their drug of choice. It is the reason why sex addicts and gamblers and every other, it's It's what we've been seeking all of our lives. We've been seeking harmony with our life. From birth, at birth, if we don't start breathing, somebody might spank us on the butt to get us to start breathing, maybe crying, prick our foot, like I had to do with my daughter. But and I know this from this about the drugs and the alcohol and all the other pursuits that I've gone down, whoring around, drinking, drugging, and doing trying to go on going down a bunch of dead end streets, trying to find what I've been looking for all my life, and that was the love within me, not love from without, not love from the outside. I sought love and attention and appreciation and from all the world around me. And I failed to look within me and find the love I have within me and cultivate a love with God, who is everywhere and in all things and is all things. And that God has been with me all my life, and I've ignored him. I've been oblivious to. I was not trained or taught to see God everywhere. The God I was taught was somewhere up in heaven somewhere, but that's a mistake. Um, and pursuing ideas like compulsory things that Jesus is God um, is is a mistake for Jesus. Jesus was the greatest messenger, greatest transformer to guide humans into returning to loving God instead of loving rituals and getting caught up in a bunch of nonsense. But as humans are, they the old saying, screw up a free lunch. Well, humans have a tendency to screw up everything they do, including Jesus' message of returning to loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Same goes with Judaism. Same goes with Mohammedanism. They all get screwed up by humans. The interpretations, the translations, the processing, all the all the ancient or archaic texts. I have written several books, and in one of them, I'm going to read out of some of them. I call this a gauntlet of verification for all the ancient and archaic texts. Um, this is number one in the gauntlet of verification that nullifies or neutralizes what's written in an ancient text. Um, that they're no longer they're no longer absolute certainty about the intent or the meaning of what was written in ancient texts or archaic texts from 5,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 1,400 years ago, even 100 years ago, even history. History is often written by a victor or a victim or a neutral observer. There are a variety of different interpretations of what happened in World War II, in Vietnam, in the conquest of Rome, the Ottoman Empire, the Egyptian Empire, the Greek Empire. The history written about all those things is uh, is written by someone from some perspective, either the victor's perspective, which neutralizes or nullifies the victims of their conquests, um, or it's written by a victim who exaggerates the abuses and terrors of the victors, or a neutral observer who's just happened to be on the outside of the victim and victimizer. So anyway, I've got a list of different reasons why, and again, I don't want to completely dismiss everything that's written in ancient and archaic texts. but I don't want anybody cutting somebody's head off or killing somebody or ostracizing somebody or demeaning anybody or isolating anyone for not believing or not accepting the words that are written in ancient or archaic texts. Uh, the idea of this is it eliminates this little gauntlet of verification can eliminate the struggles that people have with trying to make the Noah's Ark story fit modern history. It didn't exist as it is. It's just too many. It's too much impossibility. We couldn't get all the Earth's creatures on a ship that big. We couldn't. The gases from waste products would kill every living thing on there. There's confined. There's no windows on the side because there was a flooding. There's a big opening in the top, and rain and water could go in there. The maintenance, the feeding, the cleanup of the waste products, the feeding of the animals. There wasn't enough room on there for the food for all those animals. And Noah didn't go to, or there's no flying animals in the story. And a couple different versions say Noah went and got the animals. Other versions say that God brought them to him. But there was no flying animals, and bringing polar bears from the Arctic to that region where jaguars and capybaras and anacondas from the Amazon in South America or kangaroos from Australia. It didn't happen. There's no, that's not possible. You couldn't build a ship today. You're discovering new creatures all the time. This didn't happen. The water, there wasn't enough water, isn't enough water now, and never was enough water to cover the earth. The idea that the tectonic plates shifted and rose the mountains up um, to that there was a flat earth or there was no mountains back then. Then all of a sudden, when the flood, it was just water. And then if it was just water, and that's all there was, then there never would have been any land for animals to live on to begin with. And there's a couple other little disclusions, discounting, but people are struggling, spending lots of time and energy struggling to make that exist, make that authentic and true. It's a waste of time. It's not relevant to loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. It's a distraction. It's a distraction from the main number one commandment. And this gauntlet of verification undermines the ancient and archaic texts, and it turns out to be positive for both atheists and agnostic and the religious. We don't have to struggle to make every word that we've got from an ancient text fit modern understanding of the world we live in. We don't need to struggle with that. And we don't need to kill people, cut people's heads off, or burn them alive because we've got some ancient archaic text that we think was accumulated by humans, gathered together by humans, and there's the potential for all kinds of barbaric crap brought into these ancient texts, ancient archaic texts. So this little gauntlet of verification helps the atheist or neutralizes the atheist's attack on the obvious mistakes in the Garden of Eden story, Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark. Um, and it also neutralizes or helps the religious in their struggles to try to defend the undefendable with all kinds of crazy ideas and theories about flat earths um, great floods and tectonic shifts and it was possible there was a local flood and there was local animals on it. That's fine. you can maybe get away with that, and you don't need to struggle with the original version, because the original version, when they were talking about the whole world back in those days when they had carts and donkeys to move around on, the whole world was not very big. So the flooding of the whole world could certainly have been, Egypt or Israel or one of the areas around there. But here, let's just go through a couple of little reasonings for this the undermining of the struggle to make ancient texts fit modern understandings of the world. We've got etymology, the study of the origin, to turn a light on here. Uh, the study of the origin of words and the way in which their meanings have changed throughout history. And I got an example. I can tell you the same thing without looking at the thing. Examples are the hippie culture back in the 60s, 1960s. We're talking using terms like hip and I dig it and man, I'm it's groovy, gas and grass and far out and all these different little terms. If somebody wrote down, I'm hip, then somebody in the future would think that they were made out of a hip, something like God taking a rib out of Adam and creating Eve with it. Um, so there's a lot of cultures that have a lot of slang. There's a lot of gangs and little sorority groups that have their own little language. But certainly the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims certainly could have had their own little local languages that they had little slang sayings or using a word and speaking it differently. Then there's exegesis, the critical explanation and interpretation of text, especially scripture. Philology, the branch of knowledge that deals with the structure, historical development, and relationships of language and languages. The dialects, a form of language that is peculiar to a specific region or social groups. Uh, and of course, you got an example. I'm speaking English, but the English language spoken in different parts of Ireland, England, Scotland, Australia, um, New Zealand, um, uh, and the English language spoken by people who are bilingual, English language spoken here in the United States by Southerners, people from the Bronx, people from New England, people from the West, people down in Jamaica, and any other uh, foreign territory where the primary language is English. They all speak in a different dialect. They all have a different way of speaking. And if somebody was writing down some of the things that they'd say, it wouldn't come out in the normal uh, English writing. If they wrote down the sound, the way it sounded, it would be a very interesting English language. There's translations. As of July 2018, Wikipedia claimed there were 109 English translations of the Old and New Testament combined Bible, with another 180 plus or minus separate New Testament translations. And at that time, there were 74 English translations of the Quran. Each translation is at least slightly, if not completely different than the others. This is not counting all the additional variations in other languages or language translations. One Quran translation tries to convey a religion of neutrality, while others interpret the most evil and violent belief system on earth, while others are of varying degrees between these two extremes. Uh, no one knows which is the true religion of Islam, or which ones are of Mohammedanism, Abu Bakrism, Aliism, Umarism, Uthmanism, etc. Of 62 English translations of the New Testament, John 4:24, uh, 16 use God is a spirit, 45 use God is spirit, and one uses God is sheer being itself, spirit, when the letter A makes a world of difference. Again, in Luke 17:21, of these 62 translations, 15 say Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is among you." 24 say it is within you. 16 say it is in your midst. 2 say here with you. 1 says within your grasp. 2 say inside. And 1 says ruling the lives of his people. The Old and New Testament combined are said to have 684,746 words, or 3,566,480 letters, depending on the translation. This presents practically innumerable opportunities for misinterpretations, mistranslations, ignorance, error, or deception. Interpretations, this is number 6 in the list of things. Interpretations, the action of explaining the meaning of something with actual and potential biases for or against positive or negative meanings. Not all with canvas and brush can replicate vivid images of the original. Relative handfuls of people decide the meanings of ancient, archaic texts for billions of readers. Then there's current and past cultural influences. I'm going to try to streamline this. There's oral traditions and transmissions, and a commonly understood potential for variations, distortions, exaggerations, minimalizations. There's a thing called Chinese whispers or telephone, very passive little story around a classroom. And if nobody else hears what's being what's being spoken by the first, and they all get a breakdown after you go to 20, 30, 40 students. By the time you get to the end, the story has changed almost completely. The observer, when it comes to oral transmissions, you have an observer. You have a speaker, and you have an observer. Somebody was there when Muhammad or Moses or Jesus was speaking, uh, and they hear what is being spoken, and which is normal for any human beings. They have to interpret what's being said through the filters of their own understandings of life in the world around them. So but they heard the tone of voice. Like if I say, "Go fuck yourself," with a little humor, uh, um, you'll know I'm joking. But if I wrote that in a text, um, you'd get a little offended, or someone else wrote it to you. The written word doesn't have the vocal tones, doesn't have the facial expressions, it doesn't have a lot of that body language that were parables. Jesus spoke in a lot of parables. And to this day, people don't understand what those parables are. They guess at them even today. Um, some of them were made a little bit more clear when he repeated the understanding to the apostles, and the apostles were in a fog. Like, what are you talking about? Oh my God, Jesus, what did you say? I don't understand. So he pulled them aside and he explained it a little better. But you can imagine over time. how much these things have changed, especially through oral transmissions. Oral transmissions are the opportunity for prejudice against. Just look at what goes on in modern politics with just using the example of U.S. presidents during a political season. You have one side claiming the other candidate is evil, and the other side thinking the other one is evil, and they're thinking their candidate is the new Messiah. Um, but it's the prejudice that goes on to, and can get exposed through media, which media would be like an oral transition or transmission. Um, so we've got the original observer sees, hears, smells, touches, tastes, and experiences the people, places, things, miracles, and activities being described with their understandings of their choice of words, while those that listen to the observer's verbal explanation, repetition, or description of the words spoken or event must interpret through their own understandings of the words they hear without actual experience. The, the, the person who's telling the story has experience. The person who's listening uh, has kind of an understanding, but they don't have an experience of the things spoken. And then it gets even further diminished when the person who listened to the original speaker transmits it to someone else. Now you're further away from the scene, and all the details of that scene, again, the body language, the facial expressions, the vocal tones, aren't conveyed to uh, everyone along the oral transmission line. So, and then you got 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years later, we must interpret the meanings or intent of the original speaker or experience through the filter of our current understandings of the words we read and or those preached to us. So now we're in the 21st century, and we're trying to imagine with our 21st century understanding of the world around us what they were talking about uh, uh, 100, 200, 1,000, 1,400, 2,000, 3,500, 5,000 years ago. Uh, we're guessing, and often guessing. And guessing is no grounds for cutting somebody's head off. Guessing is no grounds for excommunication. Uh, Guessing is no grounds for burning at the stake. Guessing is no grounds for superiority. Guessing is no grounds for inferiority. So then we've got another word, number 9 on this list is semantics, the branch of linguistics and logic concerned with meaning. And then we got prejudice for or against the speaker, prophet, messenger, apostle, leading to exaggerations of their talents or flaws. And again, as in conflicting media versions of U.S. presidents, political opponents, foreign leaders, and social engineering. Jews, Christians, Mohammedans, other religions, agnostics, and atheists have a wide and varying view of Jesus. Then there's the provenance, the place of origin of the earliest known history of something, the record of ownership. Then that's the quote from a dictionary. And then including of speakers, listeners, writers, and their documents of the period. Even if you had an exact replication of a false, distorted, or forged ancient, archaic text, it's going to lead to a modern false. It wasn't true then, it was made up then, or altered, or modified with a positive spin or a negative spin. And now today you have a perfectly preserved forgery, perfectly preserved um, uh, error or prejudice. Um, and then humans had to choose which of the stories, evidence, books, materials, and sources were excluded or included in the final editions or canon of all ancient archaic texts and their modern representations. Then the number 13 is literacy, linguistic competence, and intelligence of speakers, listeners, writers, interpreters, translators, and readers. So from the beginning, somebody had to speak it. You had to speak it in a way that was clearly understood by the listener. The listener often respoke it, and then when they respoke it to someone else, then somewhere down the line, somebody wrote it down, and uh, and that person who wrote things down had to write things down in the way they understood it. And then somebody had to understand through the I'm going to use the word filters again of what they understood the thing was that meant, and then so on and so forth. And now here we are in the 21st century, and we've got to interpret through our own individual versions. Like everybody who goes to the same church and listens to the same preacher or mullah or imam or rabbi, um, they all have to filter whatever's being said through their own brains. And each individual has their own little quirks and uh, uh, idiosyncrasies in how they interpret the world around them. Some look at the world with fear and anxiety and drama, and others look at it through the lens of humor. So you can get in any one congregation, you can have uh, if you have 1,000 people in a congregation, you could have 1,000 different Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Zoroastrians, Confucians, uh, uh, any you could have a whole network of different understandings of that religion or belief system. Politics, the same thing, or morality. Um, so again, the literacy of all literacy, linguistic competence, and intelligence of speakers, listeners, writers, interpreters, translators, and readers. Then we have sects. Um, A group of people with somewhat differing religious beliefs, typically regarded as heretical from those of a larger group to which they belong. All right, so the different sects or different denominations, and again, you could have the the people who are in error in their interpretation or their understanding of a certain religion could be the most powerful. Um, and because they're the most powerful, they could influence and decide what the final version of that particular religion is. Certainly, if people were learning how to love God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength, or be submissive to God in a loving manner, those people would be more likely to be killed and wiped out and marginalized by the more barbaric people who were living this religion through some other method or lens uh, or way of thinking. Uh, Again, I think I've hit on this. 16 is the potential and actual uses of irony, sarcasm, mockery, parables, humor, deception, etc., that are difficult to discern in the written word or by those that were targets of these methods. Number 17 is scientific conflicts with non-allegorically written ancient archaic text stories unsupported by claims of the miraculous creation, Adam and Eve, and Noah's Ark. Number 18 limited understandings in all areas of life and the natural world of the people of the period and era, limiting the communications between the speakers and listeners. So they only knew, they thought their world was was Egypt or Israel, or they thought it was Mecca or Medina. They thought it was some part of India, um, and they didn't know that there's atomic energy everywhere. They didn't know that there's you know the world was not flat. They didn't know that they didn't know much about the world. They didn't know Africa. They didn't know maybe Africa. They didn't know there was a jungle. They didn't know there was an Arctic. They didn't know there was an Antarctic. They didn't know how far the Earth went. They didn't know what the poles were. They didn't know, what the moon surface looked like. They didn't know, what was going on in South America. They didn't know what was going on in North America. They didn't know a whole bunch of things. They didn't know, but they were going ahead and speaking. So then you got conflicting and variant stories or passages within the same ancient archaic text. And there are different conflicting and variant stories uh, in the Quran. And of course, with the different translations, all the ancient texts are, are end up having conflicting stories. And then there's the last on the list. There's 20 different items listed out here. Um, and I have it in all three of my books, this little story. Um, the communication limitations or restrictions imposed on by antagonistic uh, forces of the times the messages were conveyed, obscure language or code words or dog whistling to avoid uh, detection, and the penalties that may rain down upon violators of outlawed practices in anything related. The current Back in those days, if the Roman Empire was persecuting Christians, um, if if in Mecca the people of Mecca were persecuting the Muslims, or Muhammad, if the Jews, Moses was in Egypt being persecuted, there would have been a different language. And again, dog whistling and code words would be used to describe things. And those code words left uninterpreted uh, would lead to a fog or a mystery or error in assuming those code words meant what they were. Going back to the "I'm hip, I dig it, man, what are you guys doing over here?" So we currently need an urban dictionary to understand intentionally cryptic and unknowingly devolved languages um, used by many different racial, ideological, religious, corporate supremacists, criminals, gangs, hipsters, youth, and other secret societies of our modern era. In our current 21st century, we have also become aware of the current difficulties in expressing opinions and ideas that the local, state, national, and international thought police, social engineers, and/or media do not approve of, that may cause loss of job, reputation, freedom, and in some cases, life. So, with all those different potentials for error, misjudgment, misguidance, uh, we can't uh, validate our. It's hot in here at the moment, and I have a little fan, and I'm camping in my little camper. at a lake place, and apologize for taking my shirt off and having the fan running, but that's a kind of an explanation of what's going on here. Um, so the the undermining of ancient texts and their validity, because we have so many different translations, and which one, again, it used to be one of my favorite uh, biblical verse was God is spirit. That's John 4:24. And then when I read somewhere that one of the Bibles, I think the first King James version said God is a spirit, and the difference between a spirit and spirit are vast. Some people dispute that, but I'm going to give it my interpretation of why I think that is so vast, because um, the God is spirit fits with the understanding we have atomic energy everywhere, and God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. A spirit, because I could be a spirit, or there could be a spirit in that little air conditioner right there, or there could be a spirit in that window there. Um, so uh, that's a big difference. And just one little letter A, if one little letter A it makes such a major difference. Only God knows uh, what errors are in the Bible or in the Quran or in the Old Testament, New Testament, or the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas or Confucius's words or Zoroaster and his thing, and the different variants of all the different religions. There's all kinds of potential for errors. But one thing that stands out here is there's a common theme, and I'm going to weave that in. I'm going to include Islam as if somewhere in the midst of all the evil that and the danger and the fucking killing and abuse of Islam, that Muhammad at some point had uh, had a really good message of submission, because submitting to loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and seeing God as one and not two or three or multiple, uh, is is like a key understanding in this loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. So, if Muhammad was getting the actual message, it's been lost by all the errors of accumulation of from different bark and animal skins and stones and oral transmissions. But either way, I'm just going to weave them all together. Judaism has the concept of loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Christianity has, or Jesus has the the main concept of loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. I'm going to assume Muhammad had the idea, but his followers bastardized it and lost it. Hinduism, or particular Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, focused on loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And Buddhism, although it doesn't have one version of it, doesn't have a God understanding. But either way, even as animals, even as animal humans, even as scientific humans, we still have a yearning to be in love with everything around us. That is, to me, the fruition, the fruiting of a human being is to achieve this place of love with all, for all, or for all, with all. Um, so, and it's very easy to find. It's right there in your breathing. In your breathing, you breathe. You can breathe. I prefer to breathe through my nose, but you can breathe through your air, your mouth. But if you're slowly breathing, so you can feel it. If you've ever had a lump in your throat from some emotional upset, the love center goes all the way down, and the euphoria can be felt all the way through there. When I was smoking crack, I noticed, or snorting coke, I noticed that, particular smoking crack, because, and smoking cigarettes, the I was smoking, uh, and the cocaine would go down, or the crack would go down into my love center, and I would inhale and get a big blast of cocaine-induced fumes, and I'd feel like unbelievable bells and whistles go off in my head, and I feel this unbelievable euphoria in my chest, and it was like I found what I was looking for, but that was so fleeting, and it went away so quickly that it became hell shortly after, because I was struggling and I was depending on the cocaine to be my source of love, or the alcohol, or the crack. Um, I tried heroin a couple times, and I probably would have. I got sick as a dog. I probably would have really liked that, and probably could be dead by now. Uh, but I haven't had a drink in 30, coming up on 37 years. Um, and thank God, otherwise I'd be dead, in and out of jail, and all the different things that I was seeking, running amok, looking for looking for love in all the wrong places. And since I found it within me, I have found peace, and I'm still detangling myself, disengaging myself, reconditioning myself to get rid of a lot of the Pavlovian responses I have to the world around me that trigger anxiety and drama and fear and all that stuff. And I'm finding love in all the things that I typically used to find annoying or aggravating or fearful of. So, um, love, find the love, um, understand who God is. God is not a trinity. God is one. God is everywhere. God is omnipotent. God is omniscient. God is God knows all, sees all, is all. Um, uh, Omnipresent. I was searching for the word omnipresent. So it's omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, and then omnicreative, the creator of all things. And again, whether it's the omniverse, if God doesn't exist, then the omniverse is the creator, is God. The omniverse is God. Our it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, agnostic, or scientist, or a religious person. We have the same. We have this, or a Jew, a Christian, a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Muslim. It doesn't make any difference. We all have the same drive within us to be in harmony with our world. And I'm going to call it in love with our world, because that's what creates harmony. When we, and again, I use a little crude term. I tell myself to shut the fuck up and love. So when I shut the fuck up and love, then I'm not loaded with prejudices and judgments and criticisms and angers and resentments and all that nonsense. This is not. I didn't create this world. I didn't even create myself. Um, and the creator of all things should be in charge with, like if the book of Revelation has any merit, then God should be responsible for sending people to hell. Humans should not ever be in charge of sending somebody to hell or killing somebody. Human beings should stay out of judgment. That should not have been left, and that should not be in the hands of humans, because humans are perverts and humans are psychopaths. Humans that get a hold of the ability to have control over people and power over and abuse people or kill people, or neglect people or take advantage of people, lie, cheat, and steal and abuse people. Humans should never, that should absolutely be left in the hands of God, the creator of all things. If God created things and created all things, then God can end the life of all things. If God wants the world to be a certain way, then God should be responsible. But in the meantime, finding harmony with this God, with God, or the omniverse, is our natural instinct. We're instinctively driven. Our being is driving us towards harmony. That's what we want. We've always wanted it from childhood. And so you're making a decision to change your life if you've got any problems. A lot of people don't have major problems, don't have any isms, don't have any alcoholism, drug addiction, or gambling addictions, or political addictions or chaos and conflict and confusion and social anarchy and decay and decline and degeneracy. uh, then maybe this story doesn't mean much. But if you've got problems, and as a matter of fact, I want to repeat what I said earlier, that there are no mental illnesses in love. So even somebody who's psychiatrically or uh, scientifically proven to have a chemical imbalance, uh, they can go into love, get into the love center. They're not going to have mental illness because it's not of the mind, it's of the heart, it's of the love center. And you detach from all the negativity and confusion and conflict that mental illnesses can have. So anyway, that's loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. A description of who God is, what love is, and how to fulfill that number one commandment that was given to the Jews, that was given to the Jewish Jesus. I want to emphasize Jesus was a Jew coming to communicate to the Jews. If you're an authentic Christian, Jew, Muslim, and Hindu, Buddhist, human, atheist, either way, uh, your primary goal and drive is to be in harmony, be in love with the world around you, no matter who you are. That's your instinctively driven process. And when you do that, if God exists and God is running your life, then by going into your love center, you just love and allow what God has for your life, or what the omniverse has for your life. So there it is. That's the number one commandment, and it's explained out in hopefully in pretty good detail. It's kind of a crude setting to do this in, but I've been procrastinating. I've written 3 books, but they're even want to give the books to somebody, they're either too complicated or too involved. And I'm also assuming that the modern world would rather just sit and listen to somebody speak. And I don't know if my voice is something that somebody wants to listen to, but this is my first attempt. Actually, it's not my first attempt. I tried this a couple of years ago, but it didn't work out. And so this might be. I'm going to probably just not edit this and just allow it, because I tried having somebody else edit one of my little conversations. It didn't pan out the way I wanted. It didn't cover all the bases I wanted. But I think this might be a go. I might post this on YouTube and see what happens. All right, later.